Okay, guys. So I thought I would try to do one of these truck talk type vlog videos for you. Something different that I haven't done before. I've enjoyed, listening to other guys' videos of this type. It's very similar to the podcast where you're just sort of talking. So I figured I'd give it a shot and see, how I like it. I've got this two customers that I do that are outside of my area. So most of you guys know, if you listen to the podcast, that 98% of my clients are within 5 minutes of my house. But there are two that I do that are outside of my area where most of my business is. And they're from when I went on my own and I left the franchise and decided to build my own brand. That first year I was advertising basically all over the city, and I got these clients. And then slowly over the years I've condensed my route to only my area. But these clients were, really good paying clients. They've always been on credit card, and there's never any complaints or any, they're not difficult clients. So I figured I would, I just keep them, and because there's the two of them, I can head out there. They're within a block of each other, get them done, and then I head back. So I thought, on the days that I'm going to those clients, it might be interesting to try one of these truck talks. And also, I have this little action camera, GoPro clone style camera that has really good quality video in the right conditions if the lighting and stuff is good. I used it for the Echo 2620 trimmer video that I did with and the backpack blower, Echo backpack blower video that I got, the first use video. So you can see that on outdoors and stuff. The HD quality of that camera is absolutely fantastic. The downside though is that this particular camera doesn't have an external microphone input, so the audio always sucked. So I'd always have to use just like music and stuff in the background through those audio clips. But what I did was I did some digging because I really liked the camera, and I didn't want to shell out a bunch of cash for a GoPro, not knowing still with the YouTube thing if I enjoy doing the YouTube thing and such. So I did some research and found that because this camera is so popular, that there's a whole bunch of people that have put out YouTube videos on how to modify it, actually take it completely apart and add your own microphone input jack that switches between the internal microphone and an external microphone if you have one plugged in. So I ordered the parts, took it apart this weekend, soldered the microphone jack in there, and it works fantastically. So that's why I've got this little, I don't know if you can see, a little lavalier mic here. Probably touching it wasn't the best thing to do there, because that's probably picking up me touching the lav mic. Anyway, so I thought, I'd give this a try and do a truck talk video, and if I decide to like it, or if you guys sort of like it, then maybe I'll do more of them on these days that I head to these particular clients, and I've got some 15 minutes or so of travel time to go do. So anyways, I wanted to actually just I thought for this first one I'd update you guys on the walk behind mowers I bought and how that is going for me. A few of you guys have asked how I'm liking using the 36, if I'm using it on more properties that I initially thought I would use on it. So I started with that 36-inch Viking that I found on Craigslist. I've talked before about how the walk behinds and standers and stuff aren't that popular here in Canada, at least not yet. The standers, or sorry, the walk behinds obviously have been around for a long time, and you do see them, but not in a residential sort of use, really. You see them more for guys that are maintaining city properties like the boulevard. I don't know if you guys can see sort of the boulevard there on the side there. That's the sort of idea that where those walk-behinds would be used. So they haven't been really popular, and it makes it hard to find one, because obviously you can buy a brand new one, but when you're not sure about whether a piece of equipment is going to work for you, it's not tried and tested in your area, and you don't see many other people using them, it makes it difficult to just go out and buy a new one. A lot of people are like, well, some of the comments I've gotten are, why don't you just go buy a new one? It doesn't make any sense. Why would you buy a used one? If you can't afford to buy a new one, then your business, you're doing something wrong, blah, blah, blah. And it's not about the money per se. Obviously, there has to be enough clients to support that type of investment. And most of my lawns are really small city lawns. And up to this point, for any ones that were a bigger sort of corner lot or something like that, I was just using a walker that I was, convinced that, I was supposed to buy and use, because it was like the best mower, going on sites like Lawn Site and stuff like that. And, it wasn't the right mower for my types of clients and for the conditions here. Today is a nice sunny day, but usually it's wet and there's a lot of clay in the soil here. Water doesn't drain. And so putting a really heavy machine on lawns can make or cause problems. So it's one of the reasons the walker didn't work for me. It was just too heavy. It would sink into the ground and stuff. So 98% of my lawns, I would say, actually 100%, if you're going to be realistic, 100% of my lawns could be serviced with a 21-inch Honda. There's just a few there, a handful, maybe 8 or 10 that they're doable with the Honda. They're just a bit too big. And like I say, so after I went from the walker, I had used a John Deere tractor, just like a Home Depot John Deere tractor, a 42-inch. And I was using that particularly because of the weight. It was so lightweight. And I figured, the walker was always getting stuck for me. It was always sinking and stuff in the wet ground. The John Deere tractor would be really good. So I used that, and it was great. It worked fantastically for the handful of lawns that I needed it for. I don't know if you guys can hear me clearly. I'm going up a hill here. The diesel is working pretty hard, pulling the trailer and stuff. So hopefully you guys can hear me. I've got the lavalier mic set, so hopefully that's you can still hear me over all that noise. But anyways, so the John Deere was working fantastically. I could mulch with it with a dedicated sort of mulch plug. I could side discharge with it easily if I needed to. I could bag with it with high lift blades. It was really good. Now, unfortunately, the John Deere got stolen along with the trailer in 2015. So, for the last few years, I had been using nothing but the Honda 21-inch. Just because I was like on the fence about getting another John Deere, not because it wasn't good, but because I was in that time also getting curious about these stand-on mowers that are obviously super popular. So I was just curious about those. So after a few years here of using just the Honda, it was getting very tiresome, and so I decided to start looking for something different. And actually was, I had my eye open on other John Deere tractors and stuff. But then, you know, that Viking caught my eye, 36-inch Viking, and I thought, you know, those have been so popular with guys that I know around the States. You know, 36-inch walk behind seems to be, you know, one of the most popular mowers out there for people starting out their lawn care business and stuff. And I thought, you know what if I, you know, take a chance on this, go check it out, and use one of those. It adds another mower to the arsenal as far as what I've used before and can relate and talk to people about, and decided to try it out. And you know, it was a really old machine, but I got it for a really good price. So immediately after starting to use it, it didn't have a side, you know, any discharge sort of chute or anything like that. So I built my own sort of chute blocker. I got some copperhead mulch blades for it, and it was working fantastically. Then I found a bagger kit, a cloth like factory bag type kit for an Encore 36-inch mower on eBay from somebody in Florida. And so I decided, you know what, it looked exactly like the Exmark ones, and I figured, you know what, I'll take a chance on it. I can always weld and like remodify the mounts and stuff for it and use that. So I bought that. I got it mounted up for the Viking, and I used it once on my own lawn, but I haven't actually used it since because we were into the summer and most lawns weren't growing enough and the mulching was working out great. At the same time, I kept looking for another mower, and I found on Craigslist, you know, just curious, always looking at Craigslist, I found that 36-inch Turf Tracer popped up almost exactly a month to the day after I bought the Viking. And one of the things with the Viking, you know, that I didn't like, well, there was a couple of things with the Viking that I didn't quite like. The first was that it was the fixed deck. So although not a huge, like a big deal, you could still adjust the height with the wheels on the front by removing the wheels and adjusting the spacers and all that. It was just cumbersome, you know, being so greasy and stuff, all the grease in those front spindle wheels and stuff. So, you know, immediately I was liking the look, obviously, of the Turf Tracer because it was basically the same mower, but with that floating deck. The other thing that really made me, or enticed me about the Turf Tracer was that it had the Kawasaki motor. The Viking had a Kohler motor. Obviously, you know, that machine is probably about 20 years old. So it's an older Kohler, the Command Pro, and it was a single cylinder, and it's loud. It's so noisy. So I didn't really like that either. It was also very hard to start in the mornings. You had to release pull this chain at the bottom to release the transmission, so you weren't trying to, you know, pull the machine like to get it started with the transmissions engaged. So it made it a little bit easier to start, but it's still a bit of a pain. So anyways, that's how I ended up getting the Turf Tracer. So now I've got the two mowers, and currently the Viking is just sitting in the garage, and I basically have it like a backup. I also have it set up, obviously, for bagging, where the Turf Tracer came with a factory mulch kit. So I've been using them sporadically throughout the summer. I'm using them now more, obviously, come September, as I get into the regular cutting. I've been able to use the Turf Tracer on a regular basis. I had rearranged my route as well to put everybody that I could use the Turf Tracer on the same day, and that way I wouldn't have to constantly load and unload, because I load and unload all of my equipment every day. So this would allow me to just load the Turf Tracer one day a week when I needed it, and you know, unload it at the end of the day, and then the rest of the week I just load and unload the 21-inch Honda mower. So that has actually worked fantastically as well, because I don't need to you know, essentially do a whole bunch of extra work loading the machine, the turf tracer, just to maybe do one lawn or something like that. It just made more sense to take those 8 to 10 lawns and put them all on one day. And then basically I've got one day where I'm just using the turf tracer, and then the other days of the week I just use the Honda. So that's worked really good. I have been able to fit the turf tracer in most of the lawns that I've wanted to. There actually is probably a few more lawns that I could use it on. And they're ones like, there's one, they're not big though. So that's where I'm sort of on the fence of whether I will use them for that. They're pretty small lawns, and it's just a front lawn in one case, so I don't bother. I just continue to use the Honda on those ones on the other days, and then it sort of keeps me at an even number of lawns to cut each day. But yeah, they work fairly well. There's a few things, you know, with the turf tracer and even the Viking that I don't quite like. I don't like the, even though they're both hydrostatic mowers, I don't like the gear system on them, you know, where you have to essentially put it in a particular gear of whatever your top speed you want it to run at is, and then, you know, you let go of the neutral safety switches or the parking, you know, switches or whatever you want to call it, and the mower starts going forward, and you have to squeeze the handles to regulate your speed on, you know, areas where you got to slow down or tight turns, that sort of thing, and then you let go of them in the wide open areas to just go forward. Now it is getting, you know, easier and easier to handle, but it's still a bit of a pain. If I'm going too fast, you know, I essentially have to, because I'm not mowing huge wide open areas. So in most cases, I have to actually stop the mower and pull the lever back to put it in a lower, slower speed, and then, you know, restart up again. So that starts to become tedious. You know, you can't exactly match, if, you know, if I find a really good speed that I like, it's very difficult to match that speed continuously over and over again. You know, if I'm in the sort of, you know, on my machine between the, you know, the number 2 and 3, if I'm in that range somewhere, you know, I can't get the exact speed each and every time that I'm in there. It takes some playing around with. So it's kind of tedious in that sense. I don't like that handle system. Like both of them, the Viking has the pistol grips and the turf tracer has the ECS controls. The ECS controls are a bit easier, but they're not like super easy versus the pistol grips. It's all relatively the same, different hand position. On the ECSs, they're higher up. I actually prefer my hands lower down because I'm short of the pistol grips, but you know, it's not a big deal. But essentially, yeah, I have been using it. I use it a lot. The only thing I wish, like I said about the controls, is that I wish it was just, you know, I'm more used to the infinite sort of hydrostatic controls of, say, the John Deere tractor, where essentially it's a gas pedal. It's in neutral when you start off, and, you know, the more you press the gas pedal, just like in your car, the faster you go. If I let go of the gas pedal, it stops. Where the you know, these walk behinds are the opposite. They're always going at top speed, whatever you have that selector set at, unless you squeeze to slow down and to stop. And because you know, you're using two hands and it controls the left and turn or left and right turning, if you um, essentially, let go of one handle, um, to adjust the speed or to do something like that, or to, disengage the blades. On this particular, on the Turf Tracer, it's got the blade engage where it's like the big lever that you got to push forward and pull back. On the Viking, it's just a knob that you can pull up and down. I actually prefer the knob. It's a lot easier to use, and more convenient at the operator controls. But yeah, you can't just let go of a control with one hand to do something, because depending on where you are, unless you're going on a long straight run, then you can find yourself turning pretty rapidly and wiping something out. So you have to be very strategic, and it takes, which is why you end up, at least for me, I end up stopping all the time to disengage the blades and stuff, and it just becomes more and more tedious. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I tried the Turf Tracer on my own lawn. I've been watering my own lawn all summer, so it's been very, very green. And then I fertilized it here at the beginning of September. I've been having to cut my own lawn every 4 days, where I'm cutting clients' lawns about obviously once a week. But my own lawn, to be able to mulch it, because it's growing it's so thick and lush and green. It's been going every 4 days with the Turf Tracer. And then even yesterday, I tried it, at the same height that I've been doing all summer long, which is higher than I mow any other client's lawns with. And I wouldn't say it didn't struggle through the mowing, but it was starting to leave a lot of clumps and stuff with the mulching kit, just because my lawn is just so thick and lush. So I think I'm still okay for mulching my client lawns, because they're nowhere near as nice as mine. Most of the clients didn't water through the summer, and the few that do are ones that I use, are smaller lawns that I use the Honda on. The Turf Tracer is on the bigger lawns and here, if it's a bigger lawn, it's more money to do other things like aerating and power raking and all stuff, and people don't tend to do that because it's just too expensive. So it's the smaller lawns that get the more love of fertilizers and all that sort of stuff. So anyways, yeah, I've been enjoying it. I still do, I'm still intrigued by trying a stand-on mower and maybe getting one eventually if I can find one pop up again on Craigslist. The only thing that worries me about the stand-ons is the weight. They're pushing, another few hundred pounds. The Turf Tracer is about, just under 500 pounds. The John Deere tractor that I was using, the Viking that I was using before that, is about 100 pounds less. It was in the 430 pound range. The John Deere tractor I was using was in that 450 pound range. So, the Turf Tracer is actually about 100 pounds heavier. And, I noticed on my own lawn in certain areas that it was starting to rut and stuff. It is a bit heavy. So it's difficult to say. Like I said, I'd like to try a standard and stuff, but I might be in that same situation as the Walker, where it just might be too heavy for the lawns that I'm using. The standard, at least you're not directly on the machine. You can walk behind it, and you can also be on the sulky behind it, which is dispersing your weight a little bit better, I think. But like I said, just going by the specs of the stand-ons that I've looked at, they seem to be a bit heavy. But yeah, I still got my eye open on them and still trying to look for them, because obviously they look to be the most efficient as far as how fast you can mow some lawns and bang them out and stuff. So yeah, I'd still really like to get one of those, just because of the controls and stuff. Just seem a lot more efficient versus that always in gear type control of the stand-on type mowers. So that's about the update here for this truck talk. I'm at the first client lawn here. I'm gonna go to get the Turf Tracer out and do this one. So let me know what you guys think about this first ever truck talk that I'm doing, and we'll see if I end up doing them on a weekly basis or so. All right, we'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.